we are going to be talking to Ekene Freechild next up with Public Citizen. Ekene, how are you tonight?
Great to be with you, Brooke.
Thanks so much. You're with Public Citizen. Let's just get right to it and tell us a little bit about Public Citizen, what Public Citizen is, and specifically what you do there.
Well, we've been around for 45 years advocating for citizens' rights in the halls of power, people's rights in America in the halls of power, whether it be Congress, the U.S. Supreme Court, and federal courts, as well as state legislatures and the executive. And we've been working on a wide range of things, from trade to democracy issues, to energy and car safety. But I'm really focused on the democracy side of things, which, as you know, is being undermined and threatened every day. And particularly, we're looking at election security, how to make sure you can make sure your vote counts this fall.
Well, let's jump right into that election security. How can our elections be compromised?
Oh, my goodness. Like you might expect, in the digital age, we're starting to see a lot of the vulnerabilities of having this incredible openness and exchange of information. And that, unfortunately, extends to our voting systems as well. Ever since the Help America Votes Act of 2002, we have seen just an incredible number of electronic voting systems. They may be paper ballot scanners, but they may also be touchscreen, push-button voting machines that have no paper record at all of how the voter intended to vote. And so you basically are trusting, if you don't look at the paper, you don't have the paper to look at, you're trusting that that machine got it right. And with something as fragile and as important as our democracy, many folks are questioning whether that is a wise move. There is a concern about the hacking of voter registration systems. In 2016, we saw Russia scanning over 20 states' voter registration systems for vulnerabilities. They were able to breach the Illinois state voter registration system. And they may have had other successes we don't know. And that's one of the big problems with hacks. You don't actually know often until sometimes years later how far hackers were able to make it. So tampering with voter registration records could deny people the right to vote when they show up on election day, or it could just create uncertainty and doubt in the system, which would also undermine our democracy. There's then also the possibility of hacking the vote count itself, particularly in states with no paper or no audit laws in place. If you don't check the paper against the machine count, you can hack the machine and no one will know the difference. So making sure that we have paper records of every single vote cast is really critical. And right now, there's 13 states that don't have that protection.
You know, I think we're in a space right now, luckily, where people are paying attention more than ever. What else do you think voters need to know about election security?
Well, it's a political issue. You think, oh, you know, it's an IT problem. The IT experts, the cybersecurity experts will fix it. Well, that is absolutely not the case. In most places all over the country, it's actually counties that run our elections. And so it's county officials who are making these decisions, and they may not have the resources they need to get the top IT professionals to check their systems, to make sure that they have paper ballots. These systems can be very expensive. So if we do not have people like folks watching right now engaging with your county election officials, with your state election officials, and the people who represent you in your local and state legislatures, it's possible that nothing will change between 2016 and 2018. Literally, absolutely no change in security, even though we've been threatened by Russia for sure, and we've also just been opened up to the world as a target for hackers in our voting system. So there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of people like you who are watching right now, talking to other people and saying, this is a political issue, we need to get funding, we need to get focus on election security if we want to make sure that our vote counts this fall.
And let's break that down a little bit more. How do we get more secure elections?
Well, it starts with folks who are viewing tonight talking to your county board of elections, or it might be your clerk or your registrar. It means talking to your Secretary of State or whoever your election official is on the state level. And we are here to help you with that. We have a coalition called Secure Our Vote. You can go to secureourvote.us, secureourvote.us, and sign up, and we'll actually follow up with you and work with you to connect to your local election officials and tell them that this matters to you. They may not be used to hearing from folks like you, but it's absolutely critical that they have your political support to get the security changes that we need.
Do you want to touch on some red herrings that you may hear a lot surrounding election security?
Yes. So you're going to hear a lot in state and local responses to concerns about security that there's really nothing to worry about. You're not going to hear that at the congressional level. The Senate Intelligence Committee, Senate Rules Committee has held countless hearings pleading for folks to take this issue seriously. But many election administrators have multiple jobs, they have multiple priorities, and they've been told by the election system vendors that not to worry, the vote counting systems are air-gapped, and that means that they're not connected to other machines, they're not connected to the internet directly. That may or may not be true. We just found out that one of the biggest voting vendors in the country, Election Software and Systems, ES&S, is actually selling modems in their machines as we speak. So that may or may not be true, but even if it is true, the problem is software. Everything runs software. Your phone, your computer is constantly updating because even the best programmers in the world make mistakes in software. They make bugs and errors, and they have to fix those. But unfortunately, our voting systems are pretty old, and a lot of times there's no more updates available for them. So they're old, they're buggy, and without paper, in some cases, we can't even detect a hack or a bug. So you'll hear, oh, some of our systems are air-gapped. We have to find out if that's true. But even if it is true, they have to be programmed before every election. And unfortunately, we've seen vendors who have been compromised. In the 2016 election, VR Systems, a Florida-based vendor, was compromised. And we've also seen that mistakes do happen, and we need paper and audits to check and make sure every vote counts.
And I want to go back to paper, what you're talking about there, because people do question how modern paper is.
Right.
I just want to touch on that a little bit more.
Yes. Well, most Americans actually already vote on paper. So if you're sitting in a state where you don't, it's actually already the norm in the United States by a thin margin. It's also the norm in many European countries and Japan who have looked at electronic voting and moved away from it. In part, many European countries have also experienced hacking attempts. But this is not the hanging chads of 2000, right? We have paper ballots where you mark with a pen or a pencil, you fill in an oval just like a standardized test, and then it's scanned. And the scanner counts the vote, and then you can check the paper against the scanner count. It's simple, it's clear, it's observable by any person who wants to be sure their vote counted, and that's the way that we need to do it if we want to make sure that we protect the vote against hackers.
Kenny, I hear you want to talk about bad history with vendors, right? Let's tell me a little bit about that. Poor security history and maybe a little bit on current practices.
Right. Well, there's just been a lot of hiccups. It's partly because vendors don't necessarily make as much money as the big tech companies that you interact with, perhaps the company that sold you your phone or makes the software for your computer. The elections market isn't as big, and so perhaps they could argue they don't have the funding for security. But there's been a lot of hiccups. In fact, there's a conference coming up called DEF CON, where hackers, white hat hackers, meaning hackers who are trying to show where security vulnerabilities are so that we can fix them, are going to be having a village the entire time just to hack our voting systems. And unfortunately, every system they've tried to hack, they've succeeded in hacking. So that's pretty concerning. They've also had a lot of scandals around things like reusing passwords like admin and ABCDE on our voting systems. There have been issues, like I mentioned, in Florida with an actual hack of the vendors. It's not clear how well they police and check the background of their employees, given how critical the security is of our elections. And those are the folks who are accessing these machines and programming them for every election. And then recently, Motherboard actually had a story by Kim Zetter about ES&S, again, putting remote access software in their machines between 2000 and 2007. And they won't disclose how many machines have this remote access software, but it's PC Anywhere, which is known to be vulnerable to hostile takeover by someone online. So it's a known, deep, serious vulnerability. And the company hasn't said they're going to remove the software. We don't know if they can remove the software. But there are literally hundreds of thousands of people voting on systems that have this remote access software installed somewhere, and that's really problematic. And the fact is that ES&S was asked about this earlier this year, and they denied any involvement. And now we find out that they in fact did know they were installing the software for 7 years. So lots of trust issues and problems. The vendors really need to come clean, but it's all the more reason folks have to get involved, sign up on Secure Our Vote, talk to your election officials, and start educating the public.
One more time for us, sign up for Secure Our Vote. What else can people do to get more secure elections?
Well, you can go to Twitter and use the hashtag #ProtectOurVote to find out what's happening. There's literally news every single day coming out about how our elections are not secure in certain ways or how we can secure them better. So if you go to citizen.org or secureourvote.us and sign up, we'll definitely get in touch with you. But you can also actively seek out news, Protect Our Vote or Secure Our Vote on Facebook. And if you get challenged by your Board of Elections, your local election officials, that this isn't an issue, you can bring that news to them and start a conversation. And personally, if you want to make sure that your vote counts and you're in one of those 13 states where you might not have any paper to vote on, you can always choose to vote absentee. You'll get a paper ballot and be able to cast that ballot. That ballot will be scanned and it's possible to recount it. It's possible to check it if there is a problem. So that's always there.
Ekene Freechild with Public Citizen, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.